All right, guys, we have finished season 2 of Young Justice. And as always, as we did back with season 1, we are going to be jumping into a tier list of every episode. This one should be a lot shorter than our previous tier list that we did for season 1, given the fact that season 2 only has 20 episodes, whereas season 1 had 26. So there was a lot more deliberation that was required for, season 1 in comparison to what we'll do for its following season. But we're going to be jumping in, ranking each episode. We'll go through the synopsis for each episode. We'll talk about some of the key moments that happen with them, or at least the ones that I can remember, and then we'll rank them. And that rank list will be kind of dynamic. We'll change the rankings for certain episodes as we go through others, because there are certain episodes in season 2 that were really important building blocks to following episodes. So we'll try to take all of that into consideration. But before we get into that, guys, if you do enjoy the content and you enjoy tier lists in general, I like making tier lists. So if there's a tier list that you'd want to see for something random, whether it be breakfast cereals or fast food joints or something like that, let me know in the comment section below. It actually would be kind of a fun series that I would love to do. We used to do it way back when, but I would love to potentially bring it back. And so without further ado, guys, let's get into the tier list. All right, guys, so here we are. We got episode 1. So I've got all the episodes pulled up here. So I'm going to read, kind of the general synopsis, and we'll talk about each one. So episode 1 was titled Happy New Year, and states that the team takes on the intergalactic bounty hunter named Lobo as a precursor to an alien invasion. Now, when I look back at this episode, I didn't find it to be like the most interesting. In fact, it was actually a really confusing episode to me, just given the fact that this was the episode that we found out that there was a 5-year time skip. There were so many changes with the team that I was kind of settling in on and trying to accept. And so it did actually end up being an episode that was pretty jarring for the first, for the first time watching. In fact, coming off of season 1, I would say maybe the first 3 or 4 episodes actually are pretty jarring, because in each of those episodes, you're just being introduced with so many changes. You've got new planets now, where, season 1 kind of primarily focused on Earth. I think there might have been, in season 1, there might have been some other episodes or some other, in which like other planets were introduced. But, season 2, obviously focusing a lot more on it being about an invasion. As you can imagine, there was just so many more planets, from Rimbor to so many of the other ones. The episode with Megan and Beast Boy was another one. I think that was another planet whose name I can't remember. But there were so many things that were happening. And so, I would say it's a great kickoff season for sure. I think looking back on it now, it was pretty decent. It definitely sets the stage for a lot of the season. So I would say it's probably a B tier episode. This was one that, I think sets a great foundation, but there are episodes that, in my opinion, I think are just overall a bit more exciting, a bit more like, a bit more interesting. Maybe, more stuff happens in them. But, so every episode, not every episode can be a banger. I think that's what makes the special ones so special, is that, they're episodes that, they're episodes like this one that I think have to, that help to kind of build up to that. All right, then we have episode 2. Episode 2 is titled Earthlings. It states Miss Martian, Superboy, Beast Boy, and Adam Strange arrive on the distant planet Ran. That was the planet. It was called Ran, to stop the alien infiltration of Earth at its source. So, this is the episode that kind of teased a little bit more about Megan and Superboy's relationship deterioration, kind of what got them to the point of him breaking up with her, which obviously is something that we'll find out in later episodes. We even get a little bit more information about, Megan. We find out about Beast Boy and how he was actually Gar from, that one episode back in season 1. And so that was a really cool thing to kind of learn about, as well as, some of the events on Ran, some of the, the impending invasion and all this kind of thing. So there was actually a decent amount to happen. In terms of like the action and stuff, I don't remember too much about this episode. I feel like it was a building block. He was building on some things. It was setting the stage, setting the foundation for a lot of things. Again, in my opinion, this is another very solid episode, but, one that didn't necessarily do anything too crazy. I think we get into the crazier episodes as we get about halfway on through the season. But again, it's another solid episode. All right, now we get into episode 3, and this is where things really start to kick off in the story. This is called Alienated, and it states that the team and Justice League continue to hunt the Krillitanes that have invaded Earth, but the aliens have help from an extremely unexpected source. This was a pretty cool episode, as it sees, us continuing to ask the question of what happened over those 16 hours that the Justice League were gone. And, that's something that even I think about now. It's incredible to think about just how much the story they've kind of like planned for when it comes to this whole 16-hour things, and how much the light had to do with it. And the fact that they sent them to Rimbor to cause trouble, to, bring attention of Earth to the Reach, so that they could then use the Reach in their kind of influence and abilities and things to kind of further their own scheme. So this is kind of something that, I look back on episode 3 and I think, this was an episode that you don't really see too much. Not a lot made sense in the beginning, but as you continue through the episode, you realize it actually is a pretty critical episode in the series. I feel like this one, at least for now, we're going to stick it in A. I think Alienated was actually a pretty good episode, but I'm sure there's some other stuff that happened in this episode that I can't necessarily remember right now, but I do remember those bits, and those bits kind of being really important to the progression of the story. So, I definitely got to put that a little bit higher than the first two. Then we get to episode 4, which is called Salvage. Episode 4 states that while Superboy and Blue Beetle battle Intergang, Nightwing and company try to salvage the soul of a former comrade fallen from grace. Okay, so this was a really interesting episode. We see Superboy and Blue Beetle kind of going a duo mission, against Intergang and Bruno Ugly Mannheim and all that kind of thing. And that kind of reveals some other bits of the story, like the fact that Sportsmaster was still alive and all that. But I would say one of the most interesting aspects about this episode centered around Red Arrow and his kind of rogue efforts to find the real Roy Harper. And when I look at it now, I'm also kind of disappointed with how the whole Red Arrow thing was dealt with, because I really enjoyed him in these parts of the season, in which he's kind of dirty, kind of grunged out, really stressing about finding, the real Roy Harper, and how much you could tell that was weighing on him. And I really love that story arc. And after we find Red Arrow, the original Roy, a couple episodes later, we never see Roy Harper again. And, that's something that I do kind of miss. I felt like that was a bit of a missed opportunity for them to have this Roy Harper, maybe the other one as well. But, it is one of those things where, I really enjoyed this part where, it was nice to see heroes kind of falling from grace and kind of having these real human experiences. And Roy is, for the most part, I'm pretty sure he's human. And so seeing him kind of really struggle with this and having a feeling in his gut that the real Roy is out there, and that, he has a responsibility to find him, I think it was a really interesting character arc. And it's nice to see heroes kind of that were once, considered so, once were considered good, have these like kind of human moments where they're not doing things, 100% the right way. I think that's what makes them very real, very authentic individuals. And it's something that I personally really enjoy, when it comes to story arcs for any hero. And so with that being said, I think I'm going to put this episode in Overwhelmed. We'll put it in A tier. I think some really important stuff happened in this episode, and I just personally really enjoyed it. Next up, let's talk about episode 5, Beneath, or what I like to call Girls' Day, because this episode sees Jaime Reyes searching for a missing friend, while Miss Martian, Batgirl, Bumblebee, and Wonder Girl return to Bialia to discover what lies beneath. Now, I think personally I'm going to put this in B tier. When I look back, like this episode, when I watched it the first time, it was a fun episode. It definitely felt a bit more like, I don't want to say filler, because filler denotes something that was rather pointless. I do feel like what they did in their kind of girls' mission did have some purpose to it for sure. And then looking back and seeing how their mission to that base actually ended up being a very important location for the, I don't know what you call it, maybe the purging of the evil Blue Beetle and Green Beetle. It was actually a really important episode, but this is one that I think I actually really enjoyed. I don't know if I liked it enough to put in A tier. In fact, I probably might even consider putting this one down and then moving this one up. I don't feel like they're the same level, but I almost want to say, guys, that I kind of like the girls' mission a little bit more than I did the Superboy one. maybe even put them in the same tier, but for now, I think we'll just kind of leave it at this. Now, in my opinion, when it comes to season 2, episode 6 is, in my opinion, where things start to get really good. And it almost makes it, when I think of episode 6, I almost want to put this one back, down as well. And because we get to episode 6, Bloodlines is an A tier episode. It potentially could even be a super episode. Actually, no, take it back. Episode 6 is a super episode, 100%. In episode 6, an intruder mysteriously appears inside Mount Justice, claiming to be a tourist from the future. But who is he really, and what is his true agenda? Now, obviously, as you guys know, we saw this episode together. This was actually one of my favorite first episodes that we get to in season 2. I think the other episodes I kind of enjoyed, but definitely felt like it was building. And then episode 6 is where it kind of takes it to a whole new level in terms of the storytelling and bringing in the iconic Bart Allen, aka Impulse. And not only do we see Impulse in this episode, we see him team up with the Flash. There were some great punchy jokes in there as well. Impulse obviously brings a lot of comedic humor to the show, which I really enjoy, and I think it's kind of necessary. You also get Kid Flash as well. You get to see all the speedsters, join forces, Jay Garrick as well. Overall, guys, I mean, it's a really, really solid episode. And so, yeah, really happy about this one. This is definitely one of my first S tier episodes in season 2. Next up, we get to Depths. Another really good episode. In Depths, Artemis rejoins the team to defend a critical satellite launch, but will her first mission back also be her last? I don't think it needs to be discussed that much. Episode 7 Depths is an S tier episode, not just because of the major plot twist that happens, not just because Artemis comes back. We get a little bit of Artemis and Wally in this episode as well. At the beginning of the episode, she comes back into the fold, her fighting alongside Nightwing, them facing off against their old friend Aqualad. There was so much in this episode that I think was really, really good. Really, really good. And so, yeah, I mean, this was one of those episodes, guys, that is one of my favorite things that this show does, and it does it so well, is the classic bait and switch. It's sending you in a direction, making you think something is going this way, and then completely diverting your attention and saying, nope, it's actually going this way. That is exactly what episode 7 did for me. This is an episode, if you guys have watched, and kept up with me over on Patreon, and, when we watch these episodes, I mean, I'll tell you, this was one where I really, really, truly felt like this was an S tier episode. I was on the edge of my seat from start to finish, and I love episodes like this that do that. And so, yeah, this was a really good one. I really enjoyed it. Definitely had a good time with this one. Then we get to an interesting episode 8, Satisfaction, which is the episode in which, Roy finds the real Roy Harper, back in episode 7, and, they kind of have this moment between them and Oliver and all that kind of thing. And it states that Roy Harper seeks vengeance against the man who ruined his life. I don't know. It's tough, guys, because we just put 2 episodes, episode 6 and 7, in S tier. There's a part of me that wants to put episode 8 in S tier as well, because the battle with Roy and that, cyborg woman was absolutely sick. Him not even hesitating to blow up Lex Luthor's office was also insane. The whole episode was good. I mean, and not just good, it was great. It's one of those episodes that I think I could go back and rewatch again. And that's not something I can say about every episode. I really enjoyed this one. I think I'm going to have to give this an S tier. This might be our first triple S tier in a row season. I mean, 6, 7, and 8 were just absolutely peak. And we get to episode 9, titled Darkest. Black Manta has a new mission for his son, a mission that should prove once and for all exactly whose side Aqualad is on. Now, this is the episode where my boy Aqualad really has to make a push for that Oscar, because he's put in a very challenging situation. I mean, we find out 2 episodes ago that he is on the side of the Justice League. He's on the side of the League. He is only playing his father. He's been on this undercover covert mission for the longest time, and so, this is where you really start to see that tested. And I remember, after we watched this episode, I remember making comments about whether or not, is Aqualad potentially playing both sides? Is he playing his father until he's with his father, and then he's like, oh, I actually really like this father-son time, and then moving on and playing the other guys? That's really what I struggled with in this episode. And so, I would say overall, this is a really great one. I would say it's A tier. Blowing up the Mount Justice. I mean, all the stuff he had to do to sell his loyalties. You know, they can't be overstated, and it had great action. It had, you know, it had a lot of good stuff in it. So, you know, I would say, yeah, this is definitely an A-tier episode. Then we get to episode 10, Before the Dawn. Wait, did we do episode 9? Let me see. Okay, we did Darkest. Yeah. Okay, episode 10, Before the Dawn. On a covert mission to rescue some of its own, the team Blue Beetle and Miss Martian uncover shocking secrets and devastating truths. I mean, this was a great episode, really interesting. We find out, you know, a little bit more about the Reach and what their grand schemes are. We also uncover a new Beetle, Black Beetle, epic fight between Black and Blue Beetle. You know, a lot of other stuff that happened in between there. This was actually really, you know, this is another good one. I don't know if it's necessary. I mean, the prison break was really nice. Yeah, I think I'm gonna put this one in A tier. This was a good episode. A lot of good stuff happened. New characters were introduced. Action was tight. It was, yeah, there was a lot of good that happened here. So yeah, I think we're gonna keep it in A tier. Then we get to episode 11, Corner. The team is trapped inside the Hall of Justice for a cage match against a brutal alien gladiator. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you. This one I would put in whelmed, but there's a part of me that also almost wants to put it in underwhelmed. I don't really remember this episode. Maybe there was something important that happened in it, but yeah, this one just felt very underwhelming for me. It was maybe one of the few episodes, it might be the only episode in this season that I genuinely just was like, you know, it was cool. It was a cool episode. I don't know if I'd go rewatch it, and I don't really remember anything from it, like any big major plot points. If there's a major plot point that happened here that I'm just forgetting, let me know in the comment section. Maybe it could find its way in the B tier, but it's for now, you know, the whole fight between, you know, them and the brutal alien gladiator, you know, and all that kind of stuff was fine. It was all right, but it didn't do anything in the episode that I felt like would really that really pushed the story along outside of them losing another base or got me really excited. So, you know, again, that's just my opinion. Let me know yours. If you disagree, let me know why I'm wrong. Then we get to episode 12, True Colors. In this episode, when the Reach forms a Devil's Alliance with LexCorp, Robin leads a squad undercover to investigate. Yeah, this one was awesome. I loved the joke in this episode about Black Beetle when Kid Flash or Impulse at the time throws tomatoes at him, and then Blue Beetle hits him with a plasma ray. And I just love the joke that he makes. It just makes him seem that much more threatening as a villain. Like a villain that stands in front of you and makes jokes about the situation, as a villain that is on a different level. It's not a villain that you want to mess with. And that's what Black Beetle gave me. But this was an episode we also see the appearance of Green Beetle, who we thought at the time was on the side of Blue Beetle. It was nice to see that Blue Beetle actually had a little help from someone who also possesses Scarab and all this kind of thing. So yeah, this was an episode where I kind of saw a bit more of a turning point in the season as well. Like one moment in the season where the show really starts to amp things up, you know, in terms of the plot. And this is an episode I look back on and I would say absolutely. Then we get to episode 13, The Fix. In this episode, Black Manta seeks vengeance against Miss Martian. I'm going to put this episode in super. Yep. And I'm going to put it in super, guys, because I loved the undercover arc of this season. Like, I loved it. It brought so much intensity. It brought so much pressure to the stake of things, knowing that Miss Martian, you know, she had to go back with Tigress at the time, who she already knows at this point is Black Manta, or, you know, Tigress, who she already knows is Artemis, who's working with Manta, or Black Manta. I don't know whose name is who, but yeah, this was a great episode. And, you know, the appearance of Deathstroke and everything, this is a great episode. This was a really good one. Again, my favorite part about this episode was, you know, just the stakes being high, knowing that Aqualad is kind of playing them. You've got Tigress who's in on it as well. Now Miss Martian has to kind of pretend like she's being held hostage, even though she's, you know, there was a lot of stuff going down. And you know, all in all, I really enjoyed it. It was a fun episode for sure. Then we get to episode 14, Runaways, where Nightwing tasks Blue Beetle with chasing down a group of potentially dangerous superpowered teenage runaways. This is another one that I potentially could put in the whelmed category. I liked it a little bit more than this episode against the Gladiator, so I'm going to put it in whelmed, but it is one where I just felt like it was all right. You know, we find out a little bit more about Blue Beetle. I think this is the first episode that we see that he actually is on mode, which at the time of watching it, I was not certain. I was actually kind of confused by that. And looking back now, yeah, the way he was attacking Volcano, you could clearly see that he was this was a different form of Blue Beetle for sure. So, definitely an episode that I think progressed things a little bit more than this one, but again, nothing too crazy about this one. We get to episode 15, War, which states a conqueror from another world becomes a wild card in an intergalactic game of supremacy, placing planet Earth square in the jackpot. This is the episode that we see the big turning point in which Blue Beetle kind of, this pretty much confirms that he's on mode when he attacks members of his own team. We also see a pretty awesome fight against Mongol and the rest of the team, and the whole Superboy comment about learning to cope against Mongol was absolutely epic. I still laugh about that one. That one was really funny. And yeah, overall, I mean, I don't know if it's a super episode, but it's definitely a really good one. Definitely a really good one. And again, I love the plot twist that this show brings in, and this one was in no shortage of plot twists. I mean, even, the whole thing with Arsenal running away and all that kind of thing. Then we get to episode 16, or should I say the final 5 episodes, easily some of my favorite episodes. Many of these episodes will either find themselves in S tier or A tier, but we're not going to waste any of your time. We're going to get right into it. Episode 16, also known as Complications, states Black Manta gives Miss Martian 24 hours to live, but that may be more time than Aqualad has with Sportsmaster and Cheshire on the hunt for his head. This is another episode where there was just so much going on, but in the best possible way. You've got Cheshire and Sportsmaster hunting down Aqualad, Sportsmaster hunting down Black Manta. You've got the whole plot twist with the fact that, they were trying to figure out a plan to escape or get Miss Martian out of there, given the fact that Aqualad had already been healed. Insane episode. Epic fight scenes, the whole thing inside their minds that Miss Martian puts them in, kind of like a genjutsu kind of thing, where she reveals that, Artemis is alive, she's fine, it's all a part of a mission that they're on to take down the light. Huge episode. It had all my favorite characters in it, really. I mean, Aqualad, Sportsmaster, Artemis, Cheshire is even one of my favorite characters. I love that she's not evil, I would say, but she's not good. She plays by her own rules. She does what she needs to survive. She very much reminds me of kind of like Catwoman in a way. Not a good hero, or not a hero, but that's definitely not a villain. We get to episode 17, On the Hunt. A band of misfits is put to the test when Lex Luthor sends them behind enemy lines to rescue the team. This one was okay. Definitely not going to say that it was a bad episode, but, yeah. It's not, I definitely feel like it's better than a whelmed episode. I would say it's about an A tier. It's pretty decent. Pretty decent episode. We get to episode 18. The team embarks on a desperate endeavor to free Blue Beetle. This was another good one. I would say I'm going to put this one in A tier as well. This one, the whole Blue Beetle thing and them going back to the caves that they were on back in episode 4, and how that kind of was foreshadowing to very important events that would happen later. You got to give a lot of credit to the moments that seem insignificant at the time, but then actually play a really big role later on. We also learn about a little bit about the history of Ted Cord, and how he was kind of the original Blue Beetle, and how, Jaime ends up becoming kind of his successor in a way. Was really, really important points of the story. And some points that I really, really enjoyed. Kicking Arsenal off the team as well was a big moment in this episode. There was a lot of good stuff, really. I would say, I don't know if it's necessarily S tier, but it's definitely up there. Now, speaking of episodes that are up there, we got to get to episode 19. I'm not even going to waste your time. Episode 19 and episode 20 are definitely S tier episodes. But let me explain. Episode 19, also titled Summit. The Light calls a summit to decide the final fate of Aqualad, the team, and the entire planet Earth. This episode was so good. It was so good. It had everything. It had intense conversation. It had Black Beetle being an absolute badass. It had plot twist on plot twist on plot twist. It had the Light looking stupid, which is a moment I've been waiting for almost over 2 seasons now. I've been wanting this moment where it finally felt like the Light had been outplayed in a way that they've been outplaying everybody since the very beginning. And so this episode delivered all of that. It proved Aqualad's intellect and the fact that he is a true tactician in the way that he absolutely spent months playing the Light like a fiddle. This episode was awesome. From head to toe, start to bottom, it was awesome. This is an S tier episode, is S tier as it potentially comes. If I could place this episode higher, this would be the one episode that I think stands above the rest as one of the best episodes of the season. Last but not least, episode 20, also known as Endgame, that states, on the verge of finally ending the alien invasion, the team discovers the price of victory may be the entire planet Earth. This is obviously, we just saw this episode, and it sees Black Beetle trying to devise one last final attempt, one hoorah effort to take out planet Earth in the pettiest way possible. My man, Black Beetle was the definition of petty. Now, one thing that did surprise me in this episode was the battle between Green and Blue Beetle against Black Beetle, and the fact that Blue Beetle was able to destroy Black Beetle's scarab. I wish that they had spent a little bit more time kind of discussing that. That was not something that I was really aware of, that Blue Beetle even knew how to do, was destroy someone else's scarab. But all in all, it was still interesting. I still really enjoyed that part. And then the rest of it is just kind of a scramble for them trying to destroy all these different devices all across the world, and leading to one major sacrifice from Kid Flash, that he sacrifices himself in an effort to save the team. I really did enjoy this episode. I did. But it wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination. The Black Beetle fight, I was expecting a little bit more from. It felt like that one ended really quickly. I felt like Wally deserved a little bit more of some showtime, not only just in this episode, but in the entire season. I mean, Wally came back, at the end of episode 19. He's in it for the most part in episode 20, but then he is just a sacrifice so that other characters, I don't know. I think depending on how you look at it, Wally, his role could definitely be seen as a true hero. I mean, he truly sacrifices himself and his own happiness with Artemis to come back into the field. But I just think it's so unfortunate that it comes at the cost of his life. And I just feel like, I don't know. I look at it now and I'm like, there had to have been another way that Wally could have participated without being a sacrifice for the plot, That's just coming from someone that really is a Wally West fan, really enjoys Kid Flash, and just I feel like the character deserves so much more. And it was unfortunate to see him kind of be MIA for most of the season. I mean, he came in, he was there for bits and pieces throughout the season, but and then he comes back in for the finale. But for him to kind of be MIA for most of the season and then come back just to die, I feel like it's just so unfortunate, so unfortunate. And so that's just a personal critique. Obviously, the writing for the character was still great. I mean, it made sense, his sacrifice and him doing the things that he did, obviously for the team, but also for Artemis, I feel like was really nice. But again, it's just one of those things where I think I would have liked to see a lot more screen time for Wally, and just I wish he had gone out in a better way. But again, that's just my personal opinion. And there you have it, guys. This is your tier list for season 2. I originally thought when I started this thing that we were going to make a lot of changes to where we place some things, and move some things around. But I'm actually pretty comfortable with where we placed it. The episode against the bounty hunter, or the Guardian or whatever, was probably the most underwhelming episode of the season. But again, I don't want that to sound like it was bad. I enjoyed the episode, but when we got to the end, if we're comparing it, I don't want to lie and say that every episode was always a banger. I think for the most part, I think 85-90% of the season being full of banger episodes, I think is a pretty solid number. Every other episode was either good, great, or superb. Again, when I started this tier list, I did not expect this many episodes to be at the top of the list, but here we are. I mean, there were a couple episodes in this season that I would say are some of the best, not only of this season, but of what we've seen on the show. Like, I still think about episode 20 in season 1. I still think about episode 20. I think it's 24. It might be 24, 25 when we find out who the mole is. Episode 14 is another classic. Episode 16 is really good. Episode 9, another classic. So those are episodes I still think about. And when we move on to season 3 and we're talking about season 2, these are the episodes, especially in the super category, that I'm really going to think fondly of. 6, 7, and 8, and so many others. So let me know what you guys think. I encourage you guys to do this tier list for yourself and let me know where you place some of these episodes in season 2. Were there episodes that you that matched with what I did, or were there episodes that you put in a completely different category? Let me know in the comment section. As always, guys, if you do enjoy this tier list and you want to see more tier lists just like this, it doesn't have to be for this show. It could be for anything. you know, food or whatever. Let me know in the comment section. Drop a like down below, comment, subscribe, all that good YouTube stuff. And thanks for letting me share my opinions on 20 episodes through season 2 with each and every one of you. It's been an absolute pleasure. As always, guys, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.